Game, its rules and functions, you now need to understand the two critical aspects of the game, which is planning and budgeting and decision making. Planning and budgeting is a set of activities that you and your team would sit together to have a strategic plan in order to meet the goals and objectives which have been set forth. And decisions are something that you as an individual functional head would be taking independently in, in consultation with your other team members. Before we get into the details of planning and budgeting and how you would need to make a plan to raise budgets, let's quickly look through a certain set of slides for you to understand the fundamentals of planning and budgeting in the game. Planning in the game is a yearly activity. And the reason that you would need to plan, as I said earlier, is to have a strategic roadmap to meet your goals and objectives. And why is it that you need to plan? One is you would need budgets to meet your goals. And to execute a plan, you would need certain set of funds and you would need to request for it. Though you might request, for the sun and the moon, but you only would be in a position to have a limited set of budgets which have been approved by the head of finance. Based on the company's past performance, the finance head would be in a position to raise capital from the market and would be in a position to approve your budgets. You also would need to plan to meet your overall objectives and set a direction to your team. You as a team would have to sit together and then make the plan which will help you guide step by step on what you would need to do so that you could outperform your competition. As you're aware, decisions are interconnected and hence your department needs to know what exactly you're planning. For example, if you're the head of the HR department, unless and until you know the plan of the marketing department and the operations department, you would not be in a position to raise the indent to recruit people from the market. Similarly, if you're the head of operations, unless and until you understand the marketing's overall plan, you would not be in a position to make your production plan and production request. Effective planning would help you outperform your opponent because your team's cohesiveness finally determines the way in which you act together and then outperform your competition. Planning and budgeting in the game is a yearly activity. At the beginning of every gaming year, which is at the end of every 72 moves, you and your team would be given 45 minutes to plan and then strategize. The teams would have to take time to review your previous year's performance and also be in a position to set forth your overall plan for the next year. You could discuss amongst each other to arrive at the overall plan, and more importantly, the budgets are something that you as a team would need to strategize together in terms of who will be getting what amount of budgets depending upon your overall priority. For example, if you are in year one of operation, you might not want to set a larger budget for the international business department because you would first need to stabilize your domestic market. The finance head reviews the performer P&L balance sheet and cash flow based on the plans that you have set, and he would be in a position to approve the budgets. And please note, functional heads, that is you, would be in a position to spend money only to the tune of the budgets that's available to you. You also will be in a position to raise ad hoc budgets in case you're running out of budgets, but that is a separate approval process within the game. Now that you've understood why you need to plan, let us now look at how you would need to plan. At the beginning of every gaming year, you are required to make your strategic plan and submit your plan towards the head of finance team for him to approve the budgets which are required for you to make decisions in the subsequent year. There is an inbuilt workflow within the game which helps you in the entire planning process. The planning process begins with the marketing, strategy, and the IT department heads submitting their plans, and these plans would get reviewed by the subsequent departments in order for them to make their plans. For example, the head of operations would require details of the number of products that the marketing department needs to sell so that they could actually make their production plan and capacity planning accordingly. Similarly, the HR department would also need the overall plan of the operations, marketing, HR, and IT departments in order for them to make their recruitment plan and seek budgets accordingly. So in the game, The planning process begins when the head of marketing, strategy, and IT parallelly could submit their individual plans, which then gets reviewed by the head of operations. And head of operations, looking at the value submitted by the marketing and strategy departments, would make their plans to produce number of products and also to augment their overall capacity. Once the operations department have submitted their plan, the overall plan gets reviewed by the HR department to make for the HR department to plan their recruitment process, their training, and the welfare process. And this finally gets culminated as the overall plan, which is being reviewed by the head of finance, who in turn would be in a position to review a pro forma P&L to look at the way in which the plan has been made, and they would be in a position to finally approve the plan. The head of finance controls the overall budgets. They would be in a position to raise capital from the market or from private lenders in order to meet the working capital. They also have an authority to reject the plan in case they find that it does not meet the overall strategic objective of the team. And one thing that you also will have to take cognizance of is that if you as a team do not complete your plan within the stipulated time, the system would compute an automated budget and then would assign the budgets to you. You would be in a position to raise ad hoc budgets when you're actually playing the game, but you really don't want the system to compute the budgets and assign to you, because you have to make the strategic plan and you would need to drive the entire course of action. What does planning entail? Planning entails three distinct characteristics. One is to review the actions of the previous year and see how it's happened. The other is to look at various choices that you have to make your decision, and more importantly, to look into the future to determine what is it that you would want to do based on how your past performance has been. Now let us quickly take a look at a demo of how you could make a plan. And before we get to that, remember, planning is just 30% of work done. You would need to make a decision to ensure that you meet your plan. For example, planning to go to Singapore does not guarantee you a flight ticket and accommodation. You would need to take the necessary decision in order to plan your visit.